Вот они так определились. Сейчас. Доброго дня.
Good morning, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. We start our next press conference. Today it is organized together with the Ukrainian Crisis Media Center and the Free Crimea project. The topic for today is about issues with football development in the Crimea. You know that the Crimea has always been a football region in Ukraine, and in the past years the Crimea was represented in the national championship by Tavria and Sevastopol football clubs. Conceivably, they were not just the only ones on the peninsula because they were just the tops, and there were many other clubs playing in different other divisions. And Crimean footballers have always been present in the national team of Ukraine. But with the start of Russian occupation of the Crimea, the football Crimea was effectively eliminated from the football map of the world. I'd like to introduce now our guests. Please meet very reputable political and football figures. Meet MP, advisor to the President of Ukraine and President of Tavria Football Club, Serhiy Kunitsyn, Oleg Komunyar, who's the chair of the public committee to support Tavria, and Olexander Golovinsky. I met first acquaintance with that football topic back in '86 when the Dynamo Kiev team won the European Cup tournament, and we had Zavarov and other players playing on the Lokomotiv Stadium against Tavria team from the Crimea. It was summertime, a scorcher day. You know that most of Ukrainian teams had summer trainings held in the Crimea because of nice natural condition. And it was the first time when I thoroughly admired the performance of Tavria. At that time the team played in the first division, and they really stood out from the others. And then they tried to move in semi-finals of the Soviet Union Cup. These were early successes already in the 80s. Some of the best results gained by the Crimean club was his involvement in the Cup of the Cups and Independent Championship of Ukraine in '92, the first one. You can check for infographics dedicated to Tavria Football Club. It will be presented on the internet today. You can check for very interesting facts about the team and the club. I already mentioned it that Tavria footballers have always been in the national team of Ukraine, like Gudiminka, Golovko, Antyukhin, Galayda, Gamenyuk, Yesin, Kavpak, one of the key attackers, Kalinichenko, Maxim, Sergei Nazarenko, Shender, and many others. Tavria FC never left the top league of the Ukrainian football and even made it to the League of UEFA Champions. But still we understand that after the occupation started, it risks going into the history as something from the past. And during our recent conversations with experts, we confirmed it is necessary to remember that the club was first created back in 1958 when the Crimea made it into the Ukraine as a part of Ukraine, and that was when the history of this club started. Because of that, it is of paramount importance to retain this brand of Tavria, because it is one of the most powerful symbols of the Ukrainian Crimea and of the Ukrainian football. I'd like to give the floor now to Serhiy Kunitsyn.
Спасибо.
Thank you very much, Taras. Thanks for the invitation to this event. I'm pleased to come, despite the fact that in the parliament, as always, there is an important vote. And I would like to tell you that, yes, Taras, I'll brief you about the history. And 10 years I dedicated not only Tavria as a soccer club, but I was a president of Federation of Football of Crimea, and I was a vice president of Ukrainian Federation of Football, and I was authorized to work on football in Sevastopol, in the Donetsk and Luhansk region, and in Crimea. So the most difficult parts. It's a very important aspect that in 1958 the team was founded, and in 1954 the Crimea was joined to Ukraine. And on the history, recently I was called by one of veterans of Tavria and told, Serhiy Vladimirovich, I look at these events, and it's not Crimean football. And I remember that when you were the president of the federation, 8 professional clubs, and even in Soviet times, we didn't have that an amount in Crimea. I am proud that I won the Cup of Ukraine, not only with Tavria, but I did a lot when I was the governor. That Sevastopol team was in the first league, then the prime league, and I invited the president of the club, Sergei Pechkov, and then he won the cup with me. And he told, "Is it not a shame that in such a city the team is in the second league?" And I remember that the team was got to the first league and they started to win, and they came to me and they told, "We don't have a resource, we'll be in the prime league, and so will you tell the players to lose?" And I told that we will not find a resource, and I asked Novinsky Vadim, because he had a business in Balaclava, and he took here they did build a wonderful stadium. And so to be very brief, Tavria, Sevastopol, Crimea, Химик, Красный Перепас, Жемчужина Ялта, Тетяна Armянsk, and we had something to be proud of. And a year and a half ago, because I was a deputy in the opposition, Yanukovych gave a team to Mogilov and Konykov, and at the Congress, Mr. Storozhenko came, and violating on the agenda, they pressed down all delegates, and they started criminal cases because they wanted to get rid of Kunitsyn from the president of Federation of Football. This violating all legislation and ethics. And Taras is correct. What is with criminal and nobody recognizes an extension of Crimea. So we Mr. Surkis, after the Congress, he introduced me to the representative of UEFA, who was present at the Congress, and he told that Kunitsyn and his vice president will work on that. And UEFA made a decision in Crimea because of the program they will develop children football, and the children have nothing to do with politics. And the professionals clubs of Crimea, they are prohibited to play in any league and any cup. They were using our brands and logotypes and TSK and in the second league, and that's why now I built as a vice president of the sector, and for us to work with the Donbass and with Crimea and with Sevastopol, we developed the first pool of equipment, uniforms, balls to send to Crimea, and we work on. We want to work with children football, and I believe that we'll have a representative federation of Ukrainian Football Federation in Crimea, and through whom we will work on development of children's football. The same with Donbass. As a chairman of Afghanistan organization, I visit it very often, and we will work with Lugansk and Donetsk Federation because we need to organize cups and games there. But because we speak about Crimea here, I can tell you that craziness is not only in politics there. Just one example. I was for Khimik Krasnokipersk when I became the president of Federation of Crimea. I reanimated that club. And we reconstructed the stadium, and that team won, and it was a leader, and they were playing for the second league, and a wonderful stadium. We won from Arsenal, from Kiev, and almost won from Metrolog, but it's not about that. In July on the stadium, I had a cup of Serhiy Kunitsyn. When after annexation, 20 teams wanted to play during the fifth jubilee. Aksionov gave an order to bring all the deputies, and they prohibited to hold a cup and any politician of Ukraine, and also to take the honorable citizen of the city from me. And though I maintained the stadium for the electronic we had a wonderful stadium there, and I presented the stadium to the city. Now there are goats there as a posture. That's the attitude of Crimean authorities to the stadium, and instead of saying, okay, let's have that those games, because that was the only more or less decent stadium in the northern part of Crimea. That's an example. They don't allow me to come to Crimea because I belong to 272 deputies who have not supported those events there. But now I threw people in to Crimea. I told the Crimean authorities, if you want children football to develop in Crimea and for children to play in that game, then UEFA believes that it should be done through the Federation of Football of Ukraine, and you will have to work with me. If not, okay, nothing else. There is no other choice. And with a fan from Tavria, we discussed it. My heart is bleeding because when I started to work as the president, Andriy told me, football is drugs. If you get on it, you cannot leave it, and it's true. But one day, almost since when we won the Cup of Ukraine and Kharkiv, that's unbelievable. And Tavria, among 3 clubs, among 4, and among 3 that were champions, and Shakhtar, Dynamo, and Tavria. So that's why what happened for me, it's just as a wound on my heart. But I want to tell you that we discussed this. There is a dream, secret dream. If there's no war in the country, it would be easier. But there is a dream, and there are people, and there are patriots and veterans of Tavria to try. Maybe the situation will change, and maybe at least maybe it's more difficult in Sevastopol. Maybe there is such a dream to reanimate Tavria. For them to come to football of Ukraine, and from political point of view and football point of view, that would be correct. That's what I wanted to tell you. Thank you, Serhiy. Serhiy, a lot of emotions, yes, and connections with Crimea. Everyone feels that, and that's the part we cannot forget. And it's impossible to get it. To throw it out from the heart, the idea to reanimate Crimean football on Ukrainian mainland in Kherson region or Mykolaiv and to preserve the brand, which was a champion winner of the Cup of Ukraine. That will be clear and that's understandable. This is outside of politics, and it will be supported by all Crimeans, because fans of Tavria and of Sevastopol, they have not disappeared. They all live, and many of them live with a dream that the club would revive. I spoke to my friends. The shop of Tavria was closed down. One of fans, main fan, Oleg Komunyar, his friend, his guest, Oleg, tell me, to which extent, first of all, how many fans, active fans of Tavria left from Crimea or had to become IDPs? And you have a civic organization. What are you doing these days? And what are your tasks? Thank you, Taras. Look, what I wanted to say. You have to speak about numbers of fans. I don't like to speak about some numbers because a lot left. Active fans left, and they were under repressions of new authorities, occupation, because of their position as to occupation of Crimea. Many fighting on the front in different volunteer battalions and as a part of armed forces of Ukraine. And I can speak about ultras, and a lot of them moved to different cities of Ukraine, and to Lviv, Odessa, Kiev, and other cities. But against, as Taras told, there are a lot of fans of Tavria and have not disappeared. Maybe you don't know about that, but almost everyone from Crimea who left to free territory of Ukraine, not occupied, to some extent they are fans of Tavria. And I would like to see that club playing. I believe that under the conditions we have, Tavria, if they play in Kiev and some other cities, they would bring together Crimeans who left from Crimea. They could come to those games, they could meet each other, they could speak to each other, they could become friends. And they could discuss issues, and maybe that would be also help them. As to our organization, we are holding different consultations with different people. I would like to renovate Tavria as a club, and ideally in the second league of Ukrainian Cup, even at the beginning, even if just amateurs are there, that would be good, quite good. But even for people would come, a lot of people would come even for the second league of amateurs Tavria club. Thank you, Oleg. We have Olexander Golovinsky and press-attaché of national team, and Andriy Komarov, sport complex athlete director. Alexander, we started the discussion about the story I introduced. What was to Ukrainian football? What is happening now? Football is destroyed, and by decision, as we know, of UEFA and FIFA, no club can participate in national cups, and there were some efforts to introduce for Crimean clubs to participate in Russian Cup. What do you know about that? What's the situation from the point of national team of Ukraine? What to do with Crimean football? What are the plans? Good morning. Sorry, I was late, and the topic is important, and I have questions to Oleg and Serhiy, because it seems to me that you know more about Crimea than I do. Though I monitor these issues, and from last sources, from recent sources, in the spring there was a visit of Francis Lawrence, and from UEFA, Vice President who has run a working group of UEFA on Crimean football. Now, they analyzed the infrastructure. That was the first visit, and Laurent, he told that the infrastructure is not on a good level, and that were the first impressions. But it's about the development of football, and UEFA speaks about children, youth football. It's clear that children and youth should play football. As to the Cup of Crimea or League of Crimea, they spoke about that because UEFA is trying to be objective or diplomatic, and it's clear that Crimea is next occupied and Crimea is Ukraine, and we live with that. And that's the main principle. In that sense, I believe that UEFA has no reason to give any opportunity for that league, which could exist, and Lauris, that will be a professional status. So the clubs that were there re-registered on the basis of Tavria and Sevastopol, and who tried, they played in the second league of Russian Cup, and then they received a prohibition for that. And of course, that's it. We want sanctions and fines for Russian football, because I believe they deserve for such sanctions because they are aggressive, and I understand. Putin and Kremlin is aggressive, and they wanted to include those clubs from Sevastopol, Tavria, and Zhemchuzhina, Yalta to Russian, and they were prohibited to do that now. As I know, I read about that, and maybe you know more about that. That they organized sort of a Cup of Crimea, a professional for the teams started to play recently. They have internal competitions, and there was a Cup of Crimea of amateurs. Amateurs status doesn't need permission from UEFA. People want to play football, they play. We can also set up a league with you. It's not as serious, and it's not about playing in international competitions. I understand, and correct me, that these clubs, they hope they will be allowed in the future UEFA and FIFA to play in international competitions. But this is Ukrainian peninsula. It is an extent illegally what was captured by our pseudo neighbors, and so it cannot happen. I believe that the position of the federation, there is only one variant. Crimean clubs can play in the Cup of Ukraine. And it's not the issue of football, but football of Crimea we should bring back to Ukraine. In that sense, that position is clear. And as long as Crimea is under occupation, there could be amateur status, children's status, and they can play. But I would like to ask the colleagues, for example, we spoke about fans of Tavria, and I remember fans and ultras of Sevastopol last year, when those movements, where the Green Men started in, maybe even later, in the spring last year. And then fans of Sevastopol and of Karpat, they went into the sector. They were saying Sevastopol is Ukraine, Crimea is Ukraine. What's the situation there? Those ultras and fans and their independent moods. Do they press on them? How they treat them? The same with your fans of Tavria. And Mr. Kunitsyn, what about those people in Sevastopol and Tavria? Are there people who wanted to play in a competition of Ukraine, or they look at Russia and they wait for Russia to take them?
I talk to people every week, and veteran players of the Tavria, those who in due time won the USSR Championship Cup. Those who are deemed legends like Petrov, Portnov, and others. We also have judges and inspectors still working in the Ukrainian Championship. Take Yuri Vasyukov, who was the Director General of the Tavria FC. He called me right today to tell that they've been, tearing apart the headquarters of the club. They're in Crimea, stealing everything from the premises. And I think that those who have been together with me building the club before, they feel a huge pain being unable to react to it immediately and to somehow overcome the situation. This is why I think that I have one global idea that is a bit hampered by the ongoing war. But as the vice president of the Football Federation, I think we should resuscitate the Tavria FC. Maybe we'll find some exclusion from the regulation. I've been called by many ex-players, by Schindler, by Maxim Kalinichenko and others. Some of them are employed in other clubs all over Ukraine. My son was also involved in football, and he was at some point detained by the Federal Security Service of Russia for his attempts to do something about football there in the Crimea. That is, we have many grassroots calls in to requesting something to be done. Yes, we were stealing our land in the Crimea, but there are some ideas of Crimean footballers' continued involvement in football tournaments already on the occupied territory, but others do understand, and me as well do understand, that it is also about political dimension to it. And I think that those in the Crimea who are currently at power, also in the football sector, they have to remember how much did it take to bring the Crimean football to the status it enjoyed until recently. And as Taras mentioned, if we manage to do it, whether it be in Kherson and others, by the way, the presidential representation office for the Crimea is located in Kherson, so maybe we'll meet the local governor to do something about it. There is practically no football in the Kherson area at the moment. Before, they used to have a quite nice team called the Crystal. Probably we'll try to revive the Tavria team there in Kherson, and we'll try to involve all those with keen interest in that to join our efforts. And it will be easier for Tavria funds to go there. We'll work on it. I'll reply to the first question regarding the fans of the Tavria in Sevastopol and Simferopol. I think that information about there, even security services still hold this data about who lives where, and we do know that many of the fans have already left the Crimea. But to have a better understanding of the question, I think we should start with discussing the way how the Crimean football went its way to the point at which it is now, after this quasi-referendum with involvement of the Green military servicemen or Green people in the Crimea. The football community in the peninsula, particularly those close to functionaries like the Federation of Clubs and other such dignitaries, they started dreaming of that great happiness and great funds from Russia pouring in the peninsula. They dreamed of being invited immediately in the Russian Premier League. it's really a joke because we even say that Santa Claus is a real person in the Crimea. So their dreams were cut short, and rather than being invited into a wider Russian scale Russian championship, they are now reduced to some sort of amateur championship of regional sort somewhere in the Crimea. They even changed a bit the logos of the club, the font of letters to somehow keep the pre-existing image. But anyway, the team that used to be one of the tops on the national championship now plays under a strange name of some commercial building company or UE service, and they play in a remote stadium somewhere in Finland. We could only like those people to have more brain to get rid of this annexation euphoria they went through. And it would be good to transfer the team to the mainland Ukraine. And probably it might be possible. It would be possible before, even when the team lost some national championship and was squeezed out to the first division. But on the other hand, grassroots support from the fans has been really reduced of late, and the Crimean self-defense are known to have been roaming the stadiums during some team performance in the stadium, looking for any signs of Tavria fans, of Ukrainian affiliation. And I think, but for the search for Russian money shower, they would have ended in a bit better situation than they are in now. The most recent information is that they managed to gather 20 local clubs in the Crimea in an attempt to establish a kind of Crimean Premier League, and some first league clubs also formed from this group of clubs. That is, they want to create a kind of championship structure in the peninsula. But it also says a lot about the level to be expected. Many of the most prominent football players from the Crimea left the peninsula immediately after the annexation. There was a clear ban on Ukrainian football players' participation in any football events after the annexation. So essentially, the best players left the Crimea, and the remaining bulk were somehow herded into a number of clubs to create an imaginary championship structure there in the Crimea. So it was again politically driven, politically motivated decision, but even if they dream of the South Zone, you can imagine the number of South zones in the Russian football, and they won't be stars in any of these. So there was something said about second league to be re-established and the Tavria club to be re-established. I think that we should go further in terms of looking into Premier League, because we need to think higher and to fly higher. On one hand, we have Kherson as one of our strongholds in football development on the south, and it might be convenient from the standpoint of fans and other considerations, but we have 14 teams at the moment. There are suggestions to reduce their number, but I think that we should come up with the championship, 2 rounds of tournaments among 16 teams, And by restoring Tavria, it will be possible to involve Premier League players to the team, and it will really spur the interest. I think it's a political decision that should play in favor of the club. We should support the club from our side, and the government should lend the hand of support to them. Maybe through some sort of oblast level budget support. Someone should think about paying wages to footballers, to trainers, and probably other clubs could contribute to that, helping the way we do it, helping our military servicemen in the ATO area. So Tavria, the Tavria club from Simferopol continues playing, and it has every right to become a member of the Ukrainian championship. And same could be done about the Sevastopol team. Say Novinsky financed them at some point in time. They could play in Odessa, in Dnipropetrovsk, elsewhere. Yeah, we need to look for potential locations, for base stations for them. There are other teams in such similar position, like Metallurg from Donetsk and others. There are talks of them transferring, by the way, to Dneprodzerzhinsk. You have been long accustomed to huge budgets, top legionnaires, top divisions, and it was the time when Ukrainian oligarchs played huge role in that. Now times have changed. No, not that many oligarchs in Ukraine, and not too many top-notch players in Ukraine. But even so, there are still chances of supporting the best clubs in the country for them to continue their sports career in other cities of Ukraine, and it will play for the benefit of everyone. Yeah, I would totally agree to it, because if we take Dnieper from Dnipropetrovsk, we will see that it is Ukrainian players that play a bigger role in that.
We told everything, almost everything. We shared memories, etc. But what's your feeling after discussion? What do you think about the prospects of Crimean football? Thank you for your question. I completely support my colleagues that we need to do something, and that something we need to try to reanimate the teams on the main territory while that territory is occupied, and that we'll treat it as occupied. We'll wait for the return. But why else? When there are political issues, and let's not mix politics and sports, but practical steps that would be useful for the society, political or not, then we can think about that. But football and any sports that is social elevator for new young generations, and we cannot on occupied territories to cancel games. And children play, and let them play, let them be amateur football, etc. Under those conditions, we will never to welcome teams that believe that they inherited traditions of Tavria and Sevastopol. And I have a lot of friends in both cities. Some left, some stay, and those I know, nobody support in sports such a legal transition. It would be great to organize in Kherson, and there is also a base in Chernihiv, there's a stadium, and or not completely used. And there are some other centers in Spartak Zhytomyr, and some famous football players came from there in the Soviet Union. So these cities are ready for big Ukrainian football. Maybe it's not the highest level in Europe, but for us it's our big football, and for many people would be happy to have it in regional centers. And Kherson, if there was a team, it requires some money. When I speak about the first or the second league, it's clear that for investors will suffer costs, and but we would give a chance to Crimean children who play amateurs football. There would be a message for them to improve, to train, and to try to get into the school of Tavria. They are based in Kherson, and we'll provide them that social elevator. We'll consider them to be Ukrainian sportsmen, like in light athletics, and they registered all regional centers, including but territories. Arka, Kiev, and Sevastopol, they have federations, and all of them unite into National Federation of Light Athletics. And so they registered on their territory, not occupied territory, Federation of Light Athletics of Crimea. They chose a president instead of the one, and they decided like a separatist there, and they are outside of sports there. So international federation, like in football, they recognize that territory as Ukrainian, and will never allow on that territory a local federation to switch under to go to under a different jurisdiction. It was done. It was not just a political decision. It was done for the sake of some sportsmen who told we'll continue to compete for Ukrainian Federation. At some base, I was and 18-year-old thought I was standing for Ukraine. I will not move to Russia, and he's then in the team of Ukraine. We'll give him this chance. We have this federation, and there's a competition, and there are regional competitions. It's clear that it's not a full team, but nevertheless, there is we should give the same chance for football. I remember the story of from the 70s when the Soviet Union and the Pakhtakor team died. All the Soviet Union reanimated the team. They died in a plane crash. So Tavria that was the first champion of Ukraine, and for football fans, that is something sacred. In Sevastopol, they had there was quite an ambitious team, and we would like to reanimate that, and to give a chance to children in Sevastopol and Crimea to choose to participate, even if the territory is occupied. This is my opinion. As to the stadiums, it would be stadiums in such cities like Kherson, Mykolaiv. We need to reanimate them. Sport gets under. There's a trend. There's a reform in sport, not from state budget but from local, and there should be a PPP. Money from national level to raise and to speak to local budget or regional, because it's a social phenomena, and to make arena for the stadium to be multi-purpose. Everybody needs a running stretch, and the judges or referees, they need also to participate on that. So this. Also, there is grounds in sports, and we should express initiative. We should ask money from light athletics, and as the system started they ask money to handle with the problem of IDPs and to adapt to people who train in there. They move over here, and they granted such money, and they promised to give money for sport bases for training. because in Donetsk, for example, 3 stadiums for football. There were 3, one built and Olympijsky, there was arena for some university, but for 2013 it was used. And Kirov Stadium, they were reconstructed, and all of that disappeared for us. And we have promised to donate some money to have an arena. So this is a grant. So there should be such efforts done in football. So we need to try and to get to raise some money. Maybe it will bring us to success. Thank you very much, Andriy. And now we come to your questions. And please introduce yourself and ask your questions. Thank you, Radio Crimea Reality, Radio Liberty. And my question is to Serhiy Kunitsyn. Use the former president of Tavria, you probably know, who is former factual owner of Tavria. Are they interested to renovate that club? And Firtash, does he have to do anything with that club anymore? It's clear you have a dream, and on mainland Ukraine, it would be great if Tavria is playing here, but what are the obstacles why that cannot be implemented? Firtash was never found. He helped the club, and in 2004 and 2005 was the Prime Minister of Crimea during the reconstruction, and I helped Tavria and I reconstructed the untold former. The team, there was a dead for ill. He told that football players will kill me. They asked me to be the president of club, and I was just elected once I was a team leader in Simferopol when Tavria joined the top league and of Soviet football, and 35,000 came to the stadium for 26,000. For me, I became the president of the federation, and Tavria, they were about to leave the top league, and that's why I went. Firtash at that time, and he was buying shares of Titan, and he helped me. He helped me, and he helped during those 30 years, but he was never a founder. I finance something on some other people, and so in fact I can tell you that now it's not that important who's the founder of something which does not exist anymore. I'll just give you an example. For 10 years I run the organization of veterans of Afghanistan as a federation of they illegally held a conference, and a day before my illegal conference, and re-elected me as if I held a legal conference, but Mogilov gave it out. Registered. They had power. They registered a different organization. I won all the courts, and the Crimean organization of Afghanistan veterans, I registered the Crimea. They re-established me the chairman. The same with the Tavria. There are documents, and we'll work on that. And it's important for us to find the sponsors. I know the budget of the second league, of the first league, and of the prime league. And if I support my colleague, press-attaché, political would be correct if the team is playing in Prime League. If we find, and if I support it on the top high state level, then we should play in the Prime League. And it doesn't matter who will be the fund. It's important that the documents of Tavria, we can register them there, in Kherson, for example. And I support that we need to look for grants and for we can find resources for that, because we know the situation, the condition of the stadium in Kherson. we need to receive a year two, so we need to approach this, and I am thankful for Taras for this conversation because ideas came. As to TSK, Aksionov has the right hand. His father, they are founders of the TSK, but you understand where they played and you understand their level. We'll analyze all the documents. We'll try to understand all of this, and we'll inform you. I beg your pardon. I have to go and and I have to vote online, and I could not skip, but I will be very happy with me. So if there is a question, ask me a question, and if not, I will. Let's let him go, and we have some other questions. Thank you very much that you found the time to speak to journalists here. And see you soon. You know, this meeting was very important also for me because we heard ideas. Oleg, we discussed it. You see, we have an idea now. Yes, we need to register at least for the second league. But the situation can happen that if really there are partnership those goals, it's important to believe in what we want to achieve. So, dear colleagues, if you have a question, please ask your question. I'll give you the. If not, let's finish optimistically. I would like us because it's online, and then it will be in YouTube. I'm sure that fans of Tavria Club and Sevastopol Club they will watch it because it's important for them and people who feel isolated, and maybe we gave him some hope. So towards for our Crimean fans, for them to hear some good words, and what can I say? I will be happy to see all those fans to see during the games. I would like them to feel those emotions we get from sports and football. So looking forward to see you during our games, and if there's a group, and I'm happy to participate and to unite efforts for those stadiums to work, because I don't know, I understand how they are built and what is needed to certify them.
I do also hope that the guys who are real Tavria fans will see it. At the moment they have to be fans of some unknown Crimean clubs, and I remember all of them. We were at the fan sectors, we were following our team all the time, and we'll do whatever we can to meet again at stadiums. And I'd like to tell those who are still in the Crimea that you do know how to find me through social media. Please get in contact. We'll try to help you with what we can, and come back to Kiev if possible. Let me also add to it that I'd like to speak both to people living in the Crimea and to fans of the Crimean football that, well, though I hail from Lviv, but for 15 years, back in my childhood, I spent my summer vacations in the Crimea. And because of that, I do feel this Crimean land to be very close to the hearts of every Ukrainian. And I'd like to call up to every Ukrainian to remember that this is our land, this is our peninsula. And at times we hear how hurt are people with this annexation, and how hard it may be to retake it back. But nevertheless, I think that we should not put up with it, and we should show all sort of support to the Crimeans, also in the football sector. It is also important because if we will not give up, if we will remember that this is our land and these are our people, be it in football or in other ways and walks, it will bring its results. And I would like to invite all the football clubs to discuss this matter, to think about how to integrate Crimean football players into the football life of Ukraine. And if there are problems, say, with paying salaries to football players from the Crimea, then maybe we should all do a sort of crowdfunding, because there is no time for us to think just egotistical about ourselves. We need to wage this fight at all sorts of fronts, from the ATO to the sports, and I fully support every Ukraine-minded people there in the Crimea. We are together. You're not alone. Thank you, Alexander. I'd like to thank all our participants. I think we had quite a fruitful discussion today, and we did manage to uncover a lot of issues at stake in the Crimea, not just related to sport. It offers a lot of opportunities not only to be pessimistic, but more importantly to be optimistic, because we've covered a lot of practical and important things. Our next coming discussion in the center will be dedicated to another aspect of connection between the Crimea and Ukraine. It will relate to majoritarian MPs to be elected from the Crimea and the city of Sevastopol, and we'll talk with our experts in some time about legal and practical aspects of implementing this in real life. The elections can be held as close as on 25th of October this year, so it is important already. And I'd like to congratulate our partners from the Ukrainian Crisis Media Center with their top award they gained in London yesterday in the area of public relations and public relations related projects. We've all witnessed how this center has turned to be the major platform, the major source of information about Ukraine in Europe and worldwide. Thank you, and until our next meeting.